Greetings. This is General CJG here, coming to you with, well, the finale of the Kenobi show. At last! This has been, well, a crazy ride. I don't know if it's a positive one or a bad one. Interesting would be the word. So, yeah, finally, we're ending it here. So, yeah, with episode 6. So, yeah, introducing here is...
the currently apathetic towards Star Wars new canon material, Captain Henson.
Then?
The bewildered Jedi Knight Luke.
And we also got...
I'm forced to be here because I made CJ watch the entire Halo Limited series, and he forced me to come back here. So
Yeah, so he's here. So, yeah, we're going to talk about the final episode of Kenobi and the show as a whole at the very end. So, yeah, let's go for a very, very brief summary of our thoughts on it. So, who wants to go first?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. So, just looking at this episode, at this point in the series, the whole time I was just apathetic. You know, the moments that should have, fucking punched me in the gut, made me cry, I just felt nothing. And, well, somehow, I'm the one who hates the show the least. I still don't know how the fuck that happened. There are things that I disagree with my colleagues on in terms of things that suck, but yeah, this... I don't even know if this was the best, worst episode. Probably the best. It did have some of the best moments, not of its own accord, but overall, I'm just glad the series is over. And that's the best thing I can say.
Okay, next.
I'll go. So, for me, this entire show has been a massive whirlwind. I thought it started off okay, and then with episode 3 onwards, I just think it's been a real... I think it's just been a piece of crap, really. And with this episode, I mean, I was told prior to watching it, well, the implication that a certain Spartan gave me before I watched it was that this episode was going to make me absolutely pull my hair out. And surprisingly, it didn't. I enjoyed this episode more than I thought I would, but that's not me by any means saying that I think this is objectively good.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, the Django.
I had a newfound appreciation of the Book of Boba Fett TV show, and I still think it's a terrible TV show. It's not good by any means. It only seems like these Disney Star Wars shows are getting worse and worse. But there were some good bits about it, and some good episodes. And there are some tiny moments here in this episode and in this season, but I can't... This is just another episode where I'm just like, okay, it's whatever. I just want to move on and be done with it, and yeah, I'm just glad it's done, and I can just move on to better shows.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, as for me, well, this episode, put it simply, well, it wasn't the worst outcome it had in my mind. If you saw the last podcast, you know which one. It still was an outcome that I definitely did not like at all. So for several reasons, we'll get to in detail much later. So yeah, definitely not an episode I liked. Is it better or worse than episode 3 or 4? I don't know. It's probably as bad as 3. Who knows? So we'll have to see once we get to the end of this podcast. So yep. So that's my thoughts. So shall we get on with, well, pretty much going through this entire episode bit by bit?
Yeah, let's get this over with already.
Okay, so we begin in Tatooine, which, yeah, previous episode hinted that we're going to see Tatooine. So, yep, we're here. And let's just say that Reva is back. Somehow. Because, you know, she was stabbed in the stomach with a lightsaber, and somehow she's all well and good, standing up, and literally managed to get to Tatooine. So, yep, that happened.
Just a flesh wound.
Apparently, it's just a flesh wound. So, yeah, somehow she got through it.
Yeah, being stabbed by a lightsaber, 'tis but a scratch.
Sucks.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't survive, then you're just a pansy.
Yeah. Oh, wait, then Qui-Gon is a pansy. Oh.
Yeah, I think I brought this up last time, but surviving getting stabbed by a lightsaber, depending on where in the body, of course, it's not necessarily a problem, but, you know, we already saw the Grand Inquisitor go through that. And to do it again, like, I think doing it with the Grand Inquisitor was stupid. Like, having that at all be a plot point was just dumb, but this really starts a really annoying precedent, which honestly really started with Maul and TCW. Lightsaber, and I've heard this, I forget where, but lightsabers are starting to feel like blasters. You know? They don't have the impact they once had, and now, if you get stabbed, sliced in half with a fucking lightsaber, it means nothing. Get on. But, you know, we do get Luke saying, I'm not afraid, right? That's what he said.
Mm.
He repeats a line he said in,
Strikes Back.
Yeah. So, you know, poetry and rhymes and that sort of thing.
I guess there is that. Anyway, so, yeah. So Riva's searching for Owen and Beru. He gets somebody to tell him. Then somebody tells Owen in a shop that there's some trouble. Riva's going after him. So they pretty much are now forced to get back to their homestead to protect Luke. So they do that. Meanwhile, Darth Vader, Star Destroyer, is pursuing, well, Roken's flight transport. Yeah, the one that escaped in the last episode. And their hyperdrive is shut down, so there's no way that they can pretty much go into hyperspace. So they have to pretty much try to survive and evade the Star Destroyer, but they can't. So Obi-Wan decides that he is going to pretty much distract Darth Vader and his Star Destroyer so that the transport can pretty much escape. Leia disagrees with it, but Obi-Wan goes with it anyway, so he pretty much does that, and yeah. So Obi-Wan boards the dropship that was tied to the transport and pretty much goes away from the transport, goading the Star Destroyer into following Obi-Wan, leaving the transport alone. And yeah, basically Vader sees the dropship and he's like, yeah, follow him, screw the transport, let's go. Even if the Grand Inquisitor's like, sir, shouldn't we follow the transport? And Vader's like, nah, oh, Kenobi, yeah, he's mine, let's go after him. So yeah, that happened. And meanwhile, Owen and Beru and Luke get back to the homestead. They're pretty much getting ready for when Riva comes in. So getting their blasters ready. They're pretty much making strategy. So yeah, they're getting pretty much ready. And well, and there's this one point where Owen is like telling Luke that, oh, Tusken Raiders are going to attack the farm. Obviously, they're not going to tell him that, oh, it's a dark Jedi, Riva. So yeah, Luke goes into hiding, and Kenobi's ship lands in a rocky moon. Vader pretty much decides to take a shuttle to the moon to pretty much go face to face with Kenobi. So yeah, and Kenobi leaves Lola inside the ship's cockpit. So yeah. So that's pretty much what happens before the two main confrontations. So before we get to the confrontations, you got any thoughts on all this, guys?
Yeah, so I don't care about the people on the transport. The fact that Obi-Wan says pretty much goodbye multiple times is annoying. Having Owen and Beru stand their ground, always nice to see. Desert Planet number 43 is annoying. I am so fucking sick of that aesthetic. Like, you know, it was annoying enough in the movies. And I'm sure they do it here because probably easier for them to handle with the volume. You know, just rocks and sand. But it's just such a boring fucking look. All these planets look the same. it doesn't help that we already have Tatooine, and now we got like 2 other desert-like planets in this fucking show. Like, but Vader and the Grand Inquisitor's interactions were good. I'd love to see them in more stuff, but overall, it's like just get to the fucking fight already.
Luke, you were gonna say something?
I was actually about a couple of things. First off, the interaction between the Grand Inquisitor and Vader. Am I the only one who thought throughout that entire interaction that the more the Grand Inquisitor was trying to weed the Empire's way out of tracking down Obi-Wan, that he was digging himself a massive hole for Vader to just strangle him? Well, I kid you not. The more he was talking, I'm just thinking, dude, you're a subordinate of Darth bloody Vader, who is standing right there. You do not question him. He will choke the shit out of you. So the fact that Vader doesn't do anything, I think, is a massive surprise. The goodbye thing, as Henson said, when it came to Obi-Wan leaving the transport, a couple of small things I want to highlight, just because I think purely on face value they're kind of nice moments. Obi-Wan giving Leia Tala's holster, and the moment where he commutes with Qui-Gon and he says, I must face him, Master. Whether he dies or I do, it ends today. Now, obviously, it's a bit of a weird thing to say, but that small moment, I do think, is something that Ewan McGregor should be given massive props for. The fact that he was able to take really, really questionable dialogue and, in my opinion, make it work. The stuff with Owen and Beru taking on Reva, that was interesting. And
points about Obi-Wan saying, "Oh, someone has to die, whether it be me or him." Like that moment, and this will also lead into the fight, but I'll bring it up here. That moment would have far more impact if this show was actually about that. But the thing is, this show was sold on the rematch of the century. It was going to be about Obi-Wan and Vader. But it wasn't. Like, we got the Leia, rescuing Leia, bringing her home plot. With Vader not really having any kind of weight in Obi-Wan's story. Like, Obi-Wan doesn't care about Vader in this story. Everything he does is just to get Leia home. The only reason he leaves the transport isn't to actually confront Vader. It's so that he can lead Vader away from them. So it's like, what are we even doing here anymore? Like,
again,
they didn't build up this rematch, like, at all. Like, the show should have been about that, but it wasn't.
Again, as I say, that moment in itself is questionable, but I think
the dialogue is fine. It's just the build up to that is just non-existent. That's the real issue.
As I say, bit of a weird thing to say, but I think Ewan McGregor manages to a large degree to make it work, which is commendable considering how shit the writing is.
There is that. Django, you got anything to mention here?
Just going back to Reva, just her instant teleporting, like Dragon Ball Z style, to another planet. That was interesting, I guess. And then when it comes to Obi-Wan, it was interesting because like he said, like when he was talking to I think the pilot or whoever it is, he said like, "Oh, you're not doing this for us. You're doing it for yourself." So Obi-Wan was like kind of like, I mean, he didn't say anything, but he was kind of agreeing to that extent because he's like, "Oh, I have to stop, Vader," and I guess to that extent. But it was just kind of like, yeah, that's like not right of you just to kind of like sacrifice yourself in that regards, like just because you want to do it. So I didn't like that, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I have.
Okay, as for me, well, I thought it was fine. So I don't think I have anything more to say since you guys already brought all the points. So yeah. So now let's get to the big battle itself, or battles, I should say. Okay, so which one do you guys want to go first? Do you want to go with Riva and Homestead or Vader versus Obi-Wan?
Let's do Riva first, because we'll have a lot to
Yeah.
say on the Vader fight. Ugh.
Okay, so Riva first. So Riva approaches the perimeter of the homestead. She's entering the courtyard. She ignites her lightsaber. Owen and Beru start shooting at her, blasting her. Riva deflects their blasters, but she pretty much is able to pretty much hold her own and go as far as disarming both Owen and Beru, and somehow they get away from it unscathed, like no mortal wounds or anything. And then she senses through the Force that she uses the Force to pretty much see where Luke is. Luke pretty much escaped from the homestead, running to the canyons. So Riva pretty much goes after him, and she pretty much leaves Owen and Beru behind. Not critically wounded or anything, just stunned. She just casually threw them into the wall, and that kind of just KO'd them. So yeah, and Riva just pursues Luke to the desert, and so. Then Riva's pretty much just using the Force to dislodge the rock that Luke is standing on, knocking him unconscious. And Riva is getting ready to strike Luke, but Riva just doesn't do it because she gets flashbacks to the Jedi Purge and Darth Vader, and sees a younger version of her younger self in the place of Luke. So she pretty much just doesn't do it, and just doesn't do it. She just abandons all of this, and just by that point to put it simply, the worst prediction of Hanson became a reality. She went to the light side. So yeah, that's what happened. And of course Kenobi joined in at the very end after the fight with Vader, and pretty much tells him that Riva, you didn't fail, that you brought peace and honor by showing him mercy, and that you are no longer part of the dark side. You're free to choose your own destiny. And there Riva just tears up, leaves on the lightsaber, and just goes somewhere. So yeah, that's
she asks, "Have I become like him?" or something to that effect.
yeah.
So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this fucking thing. So, I already said I like Owen and Beru standing the ground. Riva not killing them, given her character at this point, I think makes total sense. She's fixated on Luke, thinking that killing him will solve her problems or whatever, but then, realizes that, I'm just becoming like Vader. But here's the problem, though. Firstly, as I made it clear, I didn't want her to. Okay, here it's not. She's not completely in the light yet. She's just regretful of what she's done. So at least there's that. But the issue, and I gave her the benefit of the doubt that you have this character who's done these heinous fucking things. She is a monster. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I was hoping that by the end of the show, she wouldn't regret anything. The fact that she was so fixated on Vader, she didn't care who she had to kill, who she had to torture just to get to that point. And even if she failed, she wouldn't care. But obviously, that's not what happened. She did wind up regretting all of it. And does that make sense? Absolutely. I'm not going to say it's illogical, because, people can do that. Be so obsessed with something and then realize, oh no, what have I become? Become the very thing you swore to destroy and all of that. I was just really, really hoping we weren't going to have another Imperial turn good. Now, in her case, I guess you can argue that she wasn't really an Imperial, because her plan was always try and kill Vader, but the fact that we have another Darksider who regrets it, I'm just so fucking sick of that plot. So fucking sick of it. Yeah. But I will give it this, though. I don't care about Riva as a character, but I will say this. She is in a very interesting situation. Not only does she know who Vader is, but she also knows his son exists and who his son is. Now, what can we do with that? I don't know, but you have this character with this, atomic bomb of information. I think that's just inherently interesting, but whether or not they do anything with that. I don't know. She might show up in Andor, maybe even Ahsoka for all I know. But when all is said and done, they did what I did not want. I would have preferred if she didn't regret her actions and Owen killed her our old wounds. That didn't happen, and so once again, I am disappointed. But that's par for the course.
Okay, there is that. So, look, the Django, what do you guys got to say?
Okay, so this reminds me of an extremely poor man's version of the Star Wars Visionary story called Old Wounds. In Old Wounds, Darth Maul appears and wants to destroy Luke, and in the process runs into Obi-Wan, and they have that fight. So that was kind of like the bridging point for Dave Filoni to use that for his series. But anyway, for that story, you had this epic fight with Darth Maul and Obi-Wan in the home of Luke, where he's at, in Tatooine, which was really cool. But in here, it's like, of course she's injured, and it doesn't make sense for her to have this epic fight or anything like that. But it sort of reminded me of like how they were trying to attempt it, but just failed utterly, in a way, And then, I don't know what it reminds me, her story, Riva, reminds me of something from Jedi Fallen Order. I think you had, what's her name?
Trilla?
I think it's the second sister.
Yeah, that's Trilla.
Isn't her story almost like Riva's story, in a way?
Trilla was the Padawan to Seer Junda, who was a Jedi Knight during the Clone Wars, but then when Order 66 broke out and the Jedi Order fell, Trilla was taken by the then turned Imperial forces and tortured to the point of becoming an Inquisitor, and held a lot of hate towards Seer for leaving her behind, and at the very end of that game, spoilers, she lets go of her hate for Seer.
Yeah, and then Vader appears as well. Spoilers.
Yes, yeah.
But that is done excellently. Like, that was great. That's fantastic. And in this, they didn't even come. Like, they tried to do that. Like, that same, they used that. And it just fails utterly with Riva. And plus the fact that she's still alive. I mean, I was just hoping she would just die off or something. But she's going to be for another spin-off series or whatever. But, okay, whatever. I'm done at this point anyway, so.
There is that. Luke, got any thoughts?
Yeah, so seeing Owen and Beru take some combative initiative, I think that is pretty damn cool. And considering that they are non-force sensitives, I mean, going up against an Inquisitor and living to tell the tale, again, considering they're not force sensitive, I think is pretty impressive, even if plot armor has a factor in that. In regards to Riva, I didn't care at all about her character to begin with, so it didn't really matter to me what happened to her, but I do agree with what Henson and Django have already said. The whole regret for the path she's taken, that was extremely cliche. It wasn't well done at all. I mean, the moment that was mentioned with Riva seeing Luke unconscious and thinking back to the night of Operation Nightfall, that was extremely cliche. I get what they were trying to go for, but it doesn't land anywhere near as well as the show's writer seems to think it does. And, the whole turning away from the dark side, yeah, I've got to be honest, I didn't particularly buy that, even though the actress, I think, was genuinely trying with the material she was given. Yeah, the writing is so crap that even the best performances can't completely salvage it. And also, why in the world, considering that an Imperial Inquisitor just attacked Luke and the Larses at their homestead. Why on earth did Owen and Beru let Reva live?
You know what's funny is, like, in the Visionary story, Old Wounds, like I mentioned before, Obi-Wan didn't want to kill Darth Maul. Like, he was almost tempted to the dark side, but it was Lars who ends up shooting Maul. In the end.
Based irony right there. Exactly. As I said, that's how they should have went down. Owen should have been the one to, kill her.
You know what's actually kind of funny with bringing up Old Wounds? Obviously, with Old Wounds, Luke was Maul's target originally, but as soon as Obi-Wan arrived on the scene, that was it. He was fully focused on him. Reva made more of an effort in a canon story than Maul did in a non-canon story to threaten Luke. Yet he's the one who Owen pulls the trigger on in a non-canon story, yet he and Beru let Reva live, and this is canon. What?
Though, of course, you have to also keep in mind, when you're also dealing with Obi-Wan, who's a Jedi, best not to kill a person he's talking to, or, could lead to bad things. But, leaving her alive. Yeah. Whatever, at least it's almost over with. Let's get on to one of the least memorable lightsaber fights I have ever seen in my life.
Okay, so my quick thoughts on Reva by itself. Well, most of you guys already said it, so I don't have to reiterate much. I got more thoughts at the end regarding that, and more thoughts on the next battle that happened in this episode. Okay, let's get on with it. Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader. The big thing that this show has been hyping up, even though it already...
rematch of the century.
Yeah.
Or more so... No. What it should be is the rematch of a rematch of the century.
Oh, God.
Third time's a charm.
Considering the fact that episode 3 was just us seeing that Obi-Wan was not the man he used to be, this is like the actual fight.
I know, but
regardless, General, give us the summary.
Okay, so it begins with Kenobi, Vader arriving at the moon, unidentified moon, because there's no name for it, and Vader pretty much orders his crew to pretty much stay in the shuttle. He goes after Obi-Wan, and then he pretty much is like, oh, so have you come to destroy me? And Kenobi's like, I will do what I must, and ignites his lightsaber, and Vader's like...
And then does the fucking pose.
Yep. And Vader says, then this time you'll die. Something like that. So yeah, and they finally engage in the lightsaber duel. So yeah, so they're duking it out, they're fighting, and they seem to be evenly matched. And even Vader's like, oh, your strength has returned. And
but the weakness remains.
So yeah, and then they're pretty much they're just clashing in blades, just even throwing some stuff with the Force. And then there's this one point that Vader managed to use the Force to pretty much just collapse the ground beneath Kenobi and pretty much just buries him with rocks. He thinks he died, so he just like goes. Then Kenobi is like haunted by memories of his previous fights with Anakin, but he starts focusing on his memories of Luke and Leia, so he manages to use the Force to pretty much completely throw the debris out of it and get out of there, and he's like battling Vader again, and they engage in lightsaber duel, and Kenobi manages to somehow like not only be able to throw rocks at Vader, but then go as far as making several slashes at his armor, to his control panel, his back, and even Vader's helmet, and pretty much just leaves him there like pretty much with the fences down, just ready for a strike. And Obi-Wan then sees the face of Anakin, what's left of it inside the helmet, and Vader is like talking in both Anakin and the voice modulator voice, and pretty much says that Anakin is dead, I killed him. And Kenobi is like, then he's truly dead, and Kenobi just leaves and lets Vader just stand there right there, just shouting at him, and departs from the Rocky Moon. So yeah, that's the fight. So yeah, what do you guys got to say about this?
So, as I said, one of the least memorable lightsaber fights I have ever seen. Same goes for pretty much all the lightsaber fights we got in this show, except the flashback, funny enough. Like, the choreography, the camera work, the angles, the multiple amount of cuts. It's just, like, nothing really sticks out to me. Now, I'll give this fight this. I like it when duelists get physical. Like, if I remember correctly, Vader at one point even punches Kenobi in the face.
Mm.
You know, that was one of the cool things about the prequel fights, is that you can have these moments where, you know, the two wielders are really close to each other, so then they'll get physical, like, you know, Anakin choking Obi-Wan, even punching him into the Sith. But, yeah, and to the point of, oh, you're not the one who killed Anakin, I did. I read that line, I think it's pretty obvious. That's meant to explain why Obi-Wan in Return of the Jedi says, you know, the good man, or why Obi-Wan says, oh, Vader killed your father, Luke. Oh, from a certain point of view, it was true and all that. But, I mean, that didn't need explaining. I think Obi-Wan could have gotten to that point on his own, but whatever. I will do what I must thing. As much as I love it's like poetry, it rhymes, that isn't really it, and I think that's pushing it. And we'll get to them really pushing it at the fucking end. But talking about Vader's characterization, might be reading way too much into it. This might be me headcanoning it. But I've heard complaints, you know, oh, why did Vader let Obi-Wan go in Episode 3? Why again in Episode 5? But the thing is, I think with Vader here, he wants to fight Obi-Wan on equal terms. He wants to finally prove his superiority over Obi-Wan. He didn't get that in Episode 3. Obi-Wan was a loser in that fight. You know, hell, he even says, you know, pain has just begun. So when, you know, the fire is set and Obi-Wan is, you know, dragged off, the reason Vader doesn't do anything is because deep down, like I said, he wants to prove his superiority over Obi-Wan. You can't really prove your superiority when the guy you're fighting is a loser. Like, that doesn't prove anything. So, and then in Episode 5, I mean, he fucking tears down a ship. But here's the thing, though. Given what he did to that ship, I think it's fair to say, kind of winded. I think he overexerted himself in that moment. And plus, given how fast that ship goes, unrealistically fast, I don't blame it. But here, finally, he can finally fight Obi-Wan on the terms he's wanted to fight him on in 10 years. They're equal. They can, you know, match each other's movements and such. But, so, yeah, in terms of Vader's characterization, unlike my colleagues here, I don't think he's an idiot. I think what we got makes sense with what we've been given. But, as I said, the fight itself is just boring, uninteresting, not helped by the fact that I just wanted this episode to be over. And, as I said previously, the show wasn't about Obi-Wan and Vader. It really wasn't. It got barely any build-up. Obi-Wan didn't do anything in the show because of Vader. Everything he did was to make sure Leia got home. So this fight didn't need to happen. It's hollow. So Obi-Wan being told that, oh, you didn't kill Anakin, I did, to lift the feeling of guilt off his shoulders. Since the show wasn't about that, why should I care? Obi-Wan hasn't cared about Vader this entire fucking series. Not really. Mm-mm. And the fact that he lets him live when he has absolutely no reason to. Like, yeah, I know the Jedi philosophy and all that, but, bro, you have no reason to feel guilty anymore. Killing him would be a good thing.
A very good thing.
And I get it, Obi-Wan really believes Luke is the chosen one. But you had your moment right here. Just fucking hell. There were moments I liked, and to say something on this point, you know, Obi-Wan being able to chop off a piece of his helmet, a la Ahsoka in Rebels. Now, some people may say that's lazy, but to be perfectly fair, I think it's appropriate. You know, in this case, like, you know, to have Hayden and Ewan on screen together in the present, I think calls for that. And also, just like with Ahsoka, these are two characters who knew Anakin on a deep personal level. So to basically remove the mask that he's built for himself and to get that confirmation, you know, looking directly into his eyes and him saying, Anakin Skywalker is dead, Vader is all that remains. I think, you know, on an emotional level, it hits a lot more than him saying that completely masked. So there's that, and those are my thoughts.
Okay, so before I bring mine, so look, the Django, who wants to go first?
Just about the lightsaber fight, I just thought the camera work itself was pretty bad. And I don't think it's more so the direction of the writing. I think it's the directors and producers behind it. So Deborah Chow and, you know, company just did a terrible job at just showing that fight. And I understand, too, that it's a TV show. It's not like a grand movie where, you know, the prequels or the original trilogy where you had some really good and epic lightsaber fights. But here, it's just like, I just wanted to be done because it was just not entertaining. And, you know, like Henson, I thought it was pretty boring overall. And that I will say that the slash to his face, where it shows his like almost half of his face, it reminds me of the Purge comic, where after that fight, it's just a arduous and like demanding fight for Vader, where he's facing off against 9 highly trained Jedi. I think it was 9 or 10, and in the end, he's just like beaten down, and you see that where in the end where you could see like his eye also showing in the end with his helmet. So that was a really cool look. But in here, it's like you could see half his face and you could see Hayden. So I thought that was neat. That was fine, but not as cool as Purge. I will say that.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Look.
Okay, with this being a duel, I do admittedly have a fair bit more to say. So let's just get the obvious out of the way here. This is not, and granted, I wouldn't by any means expect it to be, even if it was really, really good, but this is definitely not Battle of the Heroes 2.0. So if anyone is watching this video and for some reason hasn't seen the episode, don't go into this duel expecting Mustafar Duel 2.0 because you're not going to get it. Is it better than the previous duel? Absolutely, but that's not saying much considering how crap the previous duel was.
That was not a duel. That's just... Go ahead.
No, I see your point. No, that was barely a duel to begin with, so while this was an improvement over that, that's certainly not saying much. And it brings to mind something that I think General should say, because he is the one who initially brought up the complaint that I'm thinking of in a private discussion. So I'll let him bring that up, and I think he knows what I'm referring to when I say that. But with the rest of it, the burying in the ground thing, I thought was a kind of cool visual-ish, and like breaking out of it, I thought was cool-ish, but having that lengthy of a break, because it was kind of like a 2-part fight. You had the first part prior to Vader burying Obi-Wan, and then you had the part after that. And the whole slashing Vader's helmet. Okay, well, actually, you know, with the damaging Vader's control box with the rock onslaught. Oh no, that was actually with a lightsaber strike, wasn't it? But the pummeling of the rocks, coupled with damaging the control box. Okay, so when Obi-Wan and Vader cross paths again in Episode 4, they're going at each other far more cautiously because they know the damage that the other can do. But don't you think Vader would be far more cautious when you take this fight into account, if you're a follower of the new canon, considering Obi-Wan wrecks him almost casually here?
Well, also remember Vader's line of, "When I left you, I was but the learner, now I am the master," so I can I can understand him not being as defensive in that area, but yeah.
But I mean, either way, Obi-Wan kicks Vader's ass to an uncharacteristically ludicrous degree here, and the whole slashing at the helmet thing. Well, if you guys saw our trailer reaction for the Kenobi show way back, going back a month or two. Well, I hope someone picks up that phone, because I guess I kind of called it.
One did. Yeah.
Look,
okay, well, to be fair, I think calling that is like, yeah, I mean, something like this should have really been expected. But
well, there was no concrete confirmation that was going to happen, was there? So,
I mean, it certainly wasn't, but the idea of it happening really isn't all that far-fetched, and you really just continue.
And, of course, the whole voices overlapping thing, but this time having Hayden Christensen and James Earl Jones' voices rather than James Earl Jones and Matt Lanter's voices. That was kind of cool. But I actually do just want to bring up something in relation to what Henson said about the combatants letting each other live. Now, Henson, you were talking about Obi-Wan letting Vader live and how that was stupid, which, yes, it absolutely was. But by that same token, Vader is also really stupid for letting Obi-Wan go. Because when Obi-Wan had his back turned, what could Vader have done? Oh, I don't know, reach out with the damn Force and pull Obi-Wan towards him? But no, that would be doing the intelligent thing.
Talking about episode 3 here. Well, it's as I said. I think the point is that Vader wants to fight Obi-Wan and kill Obi-Wan on better terms. Because keep in mind, he didn't care to kill Obi-Wan in that scene, just to torture him, which obviously we know, I mean, yeah, I'm sure he wants, but I mean, it's a hollow victory beating the man who fucking helped ruin your life. You want to prove that you, like, rose from the ashes, the literal fire. So, yeah, deep down, he did want to let him go. That's why he did let him go twice, and the second time also, you know, doing that kind of thing with the Force, I'm sure, can take a lot out of you.
Doubt it.
So, with Vader, I think it makes sense. With Obi-Wan, it doesn't. But also, I want to say thing I forgot. So, when I said that all the lightsaber fights in this show were boring and uninteresting, that's not... I completely forgot about the Vader-Reva fight we got in episode 5. Seeing Vader just effortlessly take her down, take away her lightsaber, break it in two, that was just, It's always good seeing Vader just absolutely annihilate someone like that. But, yeah, and, you know, it was nice to hear Hayden Christensen talk to Ewan in the present moment. But, you know, and anytime the Force is actually used in lightsaber fights is always cool, but I think they really, really overdid it here. And I've said it before. Actually, I think I said it before, but Obi-Wan doesn't have an arc in this show. You know, it's meant to be. You know, he starts off being incredibly broken and then eventually transitions into how he was in episode 4. But the problem is, the show skips over the actual progression. In one moment, he can't even move a communicator with his hand. The next, he's able to hold back, like, an entire sea. And so to have Obi-Wan go from not being or barely able to hold his own against Vader to just wrecking him, we needed to see that progression. And we didn't. And that's a problem. You know, people will complain that, oh, you know, they made Obi-Wan just like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. But here's the thing, though. One, unlike Luke, it's actually justified here, and that it's actually explained. But also, we could have gotten a really interesting character study with this. Like, how does a man who went through the shit that he did in the prequels, having to wallow in that self-pity for a decade, how does that person, like, build himself back up? But we didn't fucking get that. We got the beginning and the end, not the middle. What the fuck? This was a waste of time. Nothing was accomplished. if the show didn't exist, we would lose absolutely nothing. And in fact, having this show, at least in respect to the new canon, like, really lessens the impact of them meeting in episode 4. Now, I have made it clear that I fundamentally dislike the idea of Obi-Wan and Vader meeting up between 3 and 4. I think it already lessens the impact. 20 fucking years compared to 10 years. But here's the thing, though. I was willing to give them a chance because, one, it's a new canon, whatever. But also, you could have at least done something really interesting with that. Like, yeah, sure, it lessens the impact because it's no longer 20 years. The last time they met was at Mustafar, which, kind of sort of changed Anakin forever. But still, you could have had something interesting happen. It wouldn't be as impactful, but still the moment could have been really emotional in episode 4. But with this show, if I watch episode 4 in the context of the new canon, that moment is just completely fucking ruined. Now, it's like rematch of the century. No, it fucking wasn't. When I left you, I was but the learner, and now I'm the master. The show wasn't about that. So, this victory Obi-Wan has, him, like, lifting the feeling of guilt off his shoulders, rings hollow. And it's like, all this time, this is what this show was supposed to be building towards. And in the end, it didn't even matter.
Yep.
But at least it means we are closer to ending this fucking episode.
Well, there is that. So anyway, now as for me, I see 3 problems with this lightsaber duel. One, already mentioned, the fight itself, not really that interesting, kind of boring. Pales in comparison to what we've seen before, and no Battle of the Heroes 2.0 here. So yeah, that's one big problem, the fight itself. That's one. 2, Obi-Wan somehow, in very short time span, being able to go from almost nothing man with almost no force powers or any sort of lightsaber proficiency to outright being his episode 3 self again, even going as far as beating the shit out of Vader, even though episode 3 said no, it couldn't happen. So just happened immediately. I'm gonna assume the Bacta tank in Javin gave him all that. That's my theory. They made a Dragon Ball Z, with how the Saiyans are like, oh, from near death they pretty much get a boost in strength. Yeah, at this point I believe that's what happened in this show with Kenobi. So that's number 2. And number 3, Obi-Wan letting Vader go, which is one of the dumbest decisions ever, because not only, Obi-Wan no longer is guilty for what happened with Vader, but do you not realize that by letting Vader live, you're only just prolonging a lot more the Empire pretty much continuing to rule the galaxy? If you had eliminated Vader, you would have dealt a massive blow to the Empire. You would have literally removed the second biggest leader of the freaking faction. You could have literally had the rebellion or any other resistances oppose the Empire a lot sooner because, well, a Jedi killed the Dark Lord of the Sith, because Palpatine is not publicly a Sith Lord in the galaxy. Like, you kill the Dark Lord, you pretty much remove one of the biggest ever assets, one of the biggest enforcers of the Empire, the one that instills fear in its own path, and him being removed, it could have done wonders to the galaxy. It could have made so much more positive than if you're letting him live. It's just absolutely stupid, and it completely just is borderline insulting, especially since you see the fight in episode 4 and you're like, Obi-Wan, you probably could have not sacrificed yourself if you had killed Vader before, because you were capable of doing it, but now it's like, now I'm sacrificing myself because I cannot really take down Vader, I just need to let the others escape. But you could have killed Vader before, but no, you don't do it because, I don't know, what is, this is one of the dumbest fucking decisions. Ugh.
Also, quick aside, Obi-Wan is meant to believe, by the time we get to the original trilogy, that Vader is more machine than man, twisted and evil. And he manipulates Luke into hopefully killing Vader, which really makes you wonder, you're okay with manipulating Vader's son to kill him and not tell him that he is his father, but you can't do that yourself. Like, you're okay with somebody killing Vader, just as long as it's not you. Which, okay, there is something interesting you can do with that. I don't think they will, and the fact that it's even
a thing.
Yeah, it's even an idea is... It's like...
But
I really want to know Obi-Wan's mindset here. I can argue Vader's mindset in letting Obi-Wan go. But in this case, especially with what we know later, why?
Well, okay, I'll go quick aside on episode 3. I think episode 3's last third only made this worse, aside from, obviously, the unrealistic way that Obi-Wan got his powers and lightsaber proficiency back. Aside from that, like, even if we go by Vader wanting to get his master to pretty much be at his level or anything, how does he know that that Obi-Wan's gonna get that in just a matter of fucking hours? Like, oh, is there like some sort of like force power nexus or something that's gonna give Obi-Wan his power back? Like, how are you gonna expect he's gonna get all the strength back? How do you know that he's not gonna stay as the old rusty man that cannot fight himself forever? How do you know that? Like, did you get a vision from the Force? Like that is that doesn't make any sense. If you,
I mean,
you might as well.
Here's the thing, though. My thought process with that is, obviously, Vader will keep going after Obi-Wan because, he has every reason to. But it's deep down. He doesn't want, like, whatever their confrontation is to be their last because, Obi-Wan kind of sucks, having to deal with all the trauma in that. So Vader will go after him. He will capture him if he can. But if Obi-Wan has the chance to, escape, Vader would let him. But
it will make more sense.
Neither here nor there. It doesn't matter anymore.
It would make more sense if Vader had at least captured Obi-Wan, take him to the Star Destroyer, maybe torture him a bit, and then Obi-Wan escaped, and that will make more sense than Vader just straight up just standing doing fuck all.
Like I said, I think it makes sense. He lets Obi-Wan go in that instance because it's an opening for Obi-Wan to get out.
A dumb one.
But whatever, just harping on this point already.
So anyway, the reason why I mentioned that is because with what we saw in episode 3, it just makes this fight even more worse. Because think about it. If the last third of episode 3 didn't happen, if we didn't get that fight, at least we wouldn't just outright go for the mindset that, like, Obi-Wan already faced Vader, so how is he going to do any better? Is he just going to magically get his powers? Like, if we didn't get that, at least this fight would have had a bit more merit, and also it would have at least not completely spoiled the hype of this biggest selling point of the show, the fight between Obi-Wan and Vader. Like, would have had that, but because that happened in episode 3, it only makes this fight worse by ruining its hype and also pretty much just souring expectations going to it. So I don't know who the hell thought it was a good idea to have to make before in episode 3 and not wait for 6, but it was a dumb idea, should have not happened. So that's how it went, and now because of this, it just made this fight worse, even though the fight itself already is pretty bad. So that's what happened, and just stinks. And rematch of the century has turned into the whimper of the century. So, yeah.
Having them meet, or having them fight early in the series, helps really set up the fact that, Obi-Wan is not what he used to be. I mean, did it have to happen? No, but I can understand the thought process behind the decision. But like I said, the biggest problem here is that the Obi-Wan and Vader plot was not the focus. They had to spend time doing the Leia shit. So if we didn't have that plot, we could have actually developed actually give him a fucking character arc. Instead of having Obi-Wan leave the planet because he has to rescue Leia, have him leave the planet because, maybe Qui-Gon tells him to get off his ass and try to save the Chosen One from the dark side, or something. So then Obi-Wan goes, interacts with Vader, whatever, realizes, he's more machine than man, twisted and evil, goes back to Tatooine, and, his guilt is, gone. He's forgiven himself, kind of, sort of, but not really. He just puts the blame on Vader. And then, he knows his mission now. It's to look after Luke, eventually train him to kill Vader. That's what the show should have been about. Not this.
Mm-hmm. That's what it should have been, but no, we didn't get it. So.
And again, I want to make it clear. I don't like this idea fundamentally, but if you are going to write this story, there are better ways to do it that actually, one, make more sense, and also will actually put the story on the focus it's meant to be on.
My thing too is like, I think you could still do it, like focus on Kenobi, but still do it so that it's still on the planet. Like, you could still make it effective. I mean, John Jackson Miller's book actually did it very effectively. And why is it that we have to go have these what do they call it, memoraries? Is that what they call it? Where they have to do like, you have to have many references to the original trilogy and prequels so that it fits into here. Like, you don't necessarily need to have that. You can just have a self-contained story with Obi-Wan. Why do we have to have Leia and Vader and all these different characters? Like, just why is it so hard to just focus on Kenobi himself?
And you know what's really ironic about that, Django? If you remember the Kenobi book, Obi-Wan doesn't appear in that book quite as much as you think he would, yet somehow that's the source that not only gives you like the definitive Obi-Wan in Exile story, but he is a million times more badass in that book than this show has ever made him. And that's
John
in
Jackson
a book.
Miller is a god amongst writers, so that's not really a surprise.
Well, no, I mean, I'm just saying, how is it that a book does a legacy character of a fictional franchise more justice than a TV show?
I mean, for a multitude of reasons. EU authors actually gave a shit.
True, yeah. And, like, the show also has so many different writers, and, I mean, I blame the sole... not the sole reason, but many of the problems that arise is from Joby Harold. I think you guys have mentioned it before. This guy has been involved with one of the worst films of all time that I will harp from this time to the next, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. I think it's just god-awful. And he is set to do some more films like, Transformers, Rise of the Beast. So that's actually going to be a trilogy. It's going to be based on the Beast Wars, Transformers Beast Wars cartoons, which I grew up on. That whole storyline. So, good luck with that.
Also, I guess this is one way to say that, Django, you fucking called it. When you saw Joby Harold here, you were skeptical. Now we saw the show. Yeah. I guess you called it. So...
I mean, he's just an incompetent writer. I mean, I know there's other writers involved, but, like, it just shows to me that he can't do it. He's not a good writer at all. I'm sure he's done some previous works better, but, like, you do King Arthur for me, that's enough. That's enough for me.
Well,
I mean, going on a Transformers point, I mean, look at someone like Alex Kurtzman. He's written other stuff too, like Amazing Spider-Man 2. But, then he went on to pretty much be in charge of Star Trek. And look how well that turned out. But, this show had moments of quality writing. Of course, this also has to do with acting, but, I think it can be argued, and my friend Donnie has brought this up, that this is probably Ewan McGregor's best performance as his character. I mean, the amount of emotion he's able to put into his face, at any given moment. You feel the PTSD. And it's just, overall, this is not the story this show should have been.
No, it's not. So after Kenobi and Reva, they have the discussion in Tatooine. Then we see Vader pretty much in his castle Mustafar telling Palpatine that he dispatched probe droids to hunt Kenobi, and Emperor is wondering if his apprentice is affected by his feelings for Master. Vader is like, means nothing. My loyalty is to you, and Vader just sits on the throne. So that happens, and so and then Then we see Alderaan, Princess Leia has returned. She dresses up, and they're pretty much so they go to the landing pad, and then they're expecting somebody to show up, and it's fucking Kenobi with Lola showing up, and pretty much just like saying that other than just giving them Lola back, he also says that if you ever need my help, you know where to call me and everything, and they can count on him. And then Leia asks Kenobi, what's he gonna do now? And Kenobi's like, I don't know, I'll see what I do. And then and also tells Leia that she's wise, discerning, kind-hearted, which is kind of like her mother, and also passionate, fearless, and forthright, which is like her father. So her parents were exceptional people with an exceptional daughter. So yeah, and at the end, Kenobi tells Leia that she can turn to him for help, but stresses the need to be careful. So yeah, Kenobi departs. Then back in Tatooine, Kenobi is in his cave with a toy in his bag. So he goes to the Lars homestead. Luke is playing somewhere there. Owen talks to Kenobi that discussing some of the events that happened. Kenobi accepts that Luke should be allowed to grow up like any ordinary boy, and also allows Owen to remain as Luke's only protector. And then when Kenobi's leaving, Owen's like, "Hey Obi-Wan, do you want to meet Luke?" And they pretty much meet up. So yeah, they introduce themselves and they meet up. And then at the end, we see in Big Earth Canyon, we see Kenobi greeted by the Force Ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn, and then Qui-Gon is like, Kenobi's surprised to see his former master. Qui-Gon replies that he was just not ready to see him. And then Qui-Gon says that they still have some distance to travel before to continue the journey through Big Earth Canyon, and that's where this ends. So yeah, that's the end of this episode. And so yeah, what do you guys think of all this?
So, it would have been great to be excited to see Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor, but whatever. Also, on another note, I don't think they did a good job with the makeup on him. I see too much Ian McDiarmid in his face. But
budget, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. But again, it was cool to see him, and hopefully, since he's here, they can maybe get him for Bad Batch and Andor. That would be cool.
Oh, something.
But because might as well use him. I mean, hey, look at Tamora Morrison. They're fucking using him. But yeah, so cool, I guess. Obi-Wan saying goodbye to Leia. Will I ever see you again? I loved hearing that. You see, this is it's like poetry it rhymes done right. It's calling back to something Anakin did, but it feels natural. Like it makes sense for her to say that. So appreciate that. And Obi-Wan saying that we gotta keep this a secret. Meant to explain why she doesn't reference, or she doesn't treat Obi-Wan like she knows him in her message in Episode 4. But, I don't think that really needed an explanation, trying to be professional and all that, but whatever, at least we got an explanation there. Obi-Wan meeting Luke for the first time, if the show was actually about, I'm not going to say it again, you know what I'm going to say. I felt nothing. If the show actually focused on Obi-Wan's relationship with Anakin, this could have hit more, but it didn't. And Obi-Wan saying hello there, that really felt like they were nudging and winking at the audience. Because, hello there is a meme, so everyone's gonna fucking know that. I am so fucking sick of that. At least they weren't making fun of the line. And granted, I know the line originated from Episode 4, but let's face it, we all know it became popular because of Episode 3.
Oh,
yeah.
At least they didn't use it to make a jab at the prequels. It was in good fun, but it just annoyed the shit out of me, because I know why they had him say it like that.
The kids love the memes, Henson.
Yeah.
But, it was also annoying in the LEGO Holiday Special, but at least that was all comedic, but...
Yeah, that's Lego.
Still, it just annoyed me, because it just took me out of it. But... And funny enough, during the last scene, I kept saying, come on, give me Qui-Gon, you better fucking have his voice start playing. And lo and behold, they actually got Liam Neeson to physically play the character. Now, I didn't care as much as I would have if the show was, good. But seeing him here was great. We haven't seen him play this role physically in over 20 fucking years, before I was even born, mind you. So getting him here, maybe possibly for the last time, it was nice. Should have had a bigger role with different story, but you know what? It was nice seeing those two actors interact, and I think this really encompasses my thoughts on the show overall. Seeing the actors, fuck yes. Everything else,
Fuck no.
eh. At the very least, this show gave me the actors back. Something I didn't think I would ever get. Hayden, Ewan, Liam Neeson. I got that at least. And in terms of acting, they fucking nailed it. Even Liam Neeson, for only having a few lines, I felt like I was seeing Qui-Gon again.
It's crazy how much the de-aging technology it helps that it's a hologram too, but it's crazy how much it advanced. It's advanced now. I don't know if it's like the same person who did Luke in The Mandalorian season 2.
Boba Fett.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Book of Boba Fett.
The person who did the deep fake?
Yeah.
It's all the same team, so it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, technology does improve.
Yeah. So, Django, go on.
I mean, overall, I just think that this show is just it's a disaster. It's a fail. I mean, honestly, I would just recommend everyone, just for Legends fans, go read the Kenobi novel. It is just so much better in every single way. You'll find out what happens to Obi-Wan right after Episode 3, so that helps. And it was a very unique novel at the time because it was like more so a Western, and I think The Mandalorian would draw inspiration for that for their own character in The Mandalorian. I'm not saying that they read the Kenobi novel, but they took inspiration from that. But I think it's a very special novel and it holds a special place in my heart, and I can't wait for us to talk about it later as well. So just to revisit that and talk about it. That's the only reason that after this that I'm kind of appreciating that I can get back to Legends and kind of appreciate that more. Other stories and stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of the Kenobi novel, I just remembered that according to, I don't know if it was Deborah Chow, one of the writers, but one of them said that the Kenobi book was a big inspiration point for this show.
Also, keep in mind the show did go through rewrites, so that is something to keep in mind. And also, inspiration doesn't mean, you can't quantify that, That could have just been a talking point of, oh yeah, this was a story about Kenobi. This is also a story about Kenobi. So, there's the inspiration, but I'm not going to put words in their mouths. Again, we just don't know. The show, we know for a fact, was rewritten. So, I wouldn't give them too much shit for that until we get more info.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even see it in that regards. What you said, it was I just don't see the connection at all.
Them actually said that they got inspiration from the book.
Yeah.
So,
but they were. I'm pretty sure that rewrites were no, we're just gonna do our own thing.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, if someone may have to correct me if I'm wrong, but if I know the story correctly, the show was meant to be a lot darker, as in kind of depressing, but then Kathleen Kennedy wanted to change it to lighten it up. So, however the original version of this story went, who knows? It could have actually been really fucking good, but then we got a Rise of Skywalker situation where the studio just meddled the fuck out of it. But
I know a bit. I know a bit of what happened. So it was originally going to be a film, but that was put on hold because of Solo pretty much bombings, which pretty much just shut off any other spin-off Star Wars movies that were going to release later. So that's one of the reasons why it was converted into a TV show. So, because it was gonna be a film, but now it's a TV show.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone knows that, but I mean, like, when it was already decided it would be a series, we had an original version where it was darker, and then they didn't want a dark story like that, so they changed it.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, some say that the series was put on hold. Well, that was confirmed in January 23, 2020, because of script problems. I believe it's what you're saying, Henson, that it was going to be dark, but they changed it at the end. So that's probably what it means. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is something. So yeah.
Yeah, once again, shit happening behind the scenes that's really fucking things over. If anyone still believes that Kennedy is a good producer, I mean,
No.
come on, with all the fucking issues she's had, and this, what was meant to be, like, the biggest fucking thing ever, is hated by a lot of people. Now, of course, some of them are of the fandom menace variety, so those people are not even worth listening to, but there is a point to be had that a lot of Star Wars fans, and I mean like actual fans, don't like this show. Now, would I say it's as divisive as something like Last Jedi?
No.
No, Last Jedi was just something else, but it certainly isn't the home run it should have been. You have people who love it. Now, to the extent of which, I don't know.
I got an idea, actually. So basically, when seeing the critics and audience scores in the Kenobi show on Rotten Tomatoes, the critics is a 70%, whereas audience is 64%. Now, if we compare to something like Book of Boba Fett, critics is 66% and audience 57%. So not that far off from Book of Boba Fett.
Take Rotten Tomatoes seriously, so it's that's interesting, I guess, but it's fucking Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm just giving a small tease, so I could probably do more, but it's just one of the things I found. So now I got a different. So in Metacritic, Book of Boba Fett is 59 critics, users 5.4, so definitely middle. Kenobi 73 on critics, users 6.9%. So yeah, kind of similar to Rotten Tomatoes. So it seems that there's a bit more people liking Kenobi compared to, say, something like Book of Boba Fett or the movies. But it's definitely not Mando levels of praise, which that is actually 80s to 90s in both Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic. So yeah.
And I think Mando also had other factors going into why people love that, because Mando was overrated as all hell. But
in a way, but at the very least at least that kept more of its vision that started from start to finish. There were some things that on the sideline, like that quest of bringing the fucking frog lady with the eggs, but at least we still had at the center the Mandalorian. Yes, with Grogu, but at least that was there. It didn't go into a whole different TV show like Book of Boba Fett, or it just completely was not about the character in the poster, like in the case of this show with Kenobi, where it's not much about Kenobi. It's more like, seems to be more about Reva with some parts of Kenobi, and Vader is just in the sideline. So
I mean, the thing with Mando is that focuses on original characters. So it's like, whatever happens there is whatever. It really doesn't matter. But with something like Book of Boba Fett in this, where you're dealing with legacy characters, yeah, of course people would look at it far less favorably. I mean, I would say I'd rather watch this than Book of Boba Fett, because Book of Boba Fett had, like, no redeeming qualities. Like, nothing of value can be derived from that show, and the only good episodes aren't even episodes of that show, which is even worse. At least with this, I got the actors. They got great performances. I mean, yeah, Temuera Morrison was good in Book of Boba Fett, but the characterization of Boba Fett in that show was just incorrect. And yeah, sure, you can make the argument that the characterizations here weren't the best, but at least the actors played them correctly.
There is that, yeah.
I'm just kind of the opposite when it comes to Book of Boba Fett, but I still think it's a terrible show. But God, I'm blanking on it. I was gonna say something, but yeah, I'll come back to it. You guys can go ahead.
Okay, so Luke, you got something to mention in regards to all this?
Just to quickly give my opinion on each of the scenes I haven't said anything about yet. Yeah, the scene at Vader's castle on Mustafar, I mean, was kind of interesting-ish, but yeah, as Henson mentioned, as great as it was to see Ian McDiarmid back as Palpatine, the makeup did look a bit weird. And in my opinion, I think Palpatine let Vader off for obsessing with Kenobi a bit too easily, but that's a completely different matter. Then going over the scene on Alderaan with Obi-Wan arriving, it was interesting and kind of nostalgic to see Ewan McGregor and Jimmy Smits. I mean, we already got it with episode 1, but to see it happen in a more happy setting, if you like, I mean, it still had something there. Obi-Wan and Leia saying their farewells to each other. Taking that scene purely on face value, I think it's a beautiful moment. But that's only because of the effort put forth by the actors. From a writing standpoint, god awful, and it shouldn't have existed. But again, the performances from the actors manage in large part to make it work. You get back to Tatooine though, and Obi-Wan's brief interaction with Owen, I've got to be honest, I'm not super keen on, considering that with all the things that the Lars family had been put through, I mean, because of course, bear in mind, Obi-Wan is Luke's guardian, essentially. Spiritual guardian, as it were. Or at least a very distant one. You would think that on top of Owen having an immense dislike of Obi-Wan as is, you would think that Obi-Wan leaving Tatooine, thus leaving the Larses far more vulnerable to the presence of Imperials, given what happened with Reva, you'd think that would make Owen you'd think that would make Owen want to punch Obi-Wan in the face. But not only does he refrain from doing that, he even allows Obi-Wan near Luke. Which, I mean, if he trusts Obi-Wan enough to meet him here, why still have the disposition towards Obi-Wan that we hear Owen express in episode 4? You know that.
Yeah.
What if he's related to Ben?
That wizard's just a crazy old man.
But what if this Obi-Wan comes looking for him?
He won't. I don't think he exists anymore. He died about the same time as your father.
Remember that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, according to this show, Owen, even though it was only for a brief moment, apparently, decided to completely abandon that disposition and let Obi-Wan meet Luke.
I don't think it's a problem at all. I mean, it's just a brief moment. Owen doesn't change his entire view. He just allows Obi-Wan to do this one time. That doesn't change anything.
Look, I know it's just given how vocal Owen was against Obi-Wan being around Luke at the beginning of this, why change his stance now? Again, especially considering what happened in this episode alone.
I'd say it's exactly what has to do with this episode alone, given, Obi-Wan kind of sort of saved him. And not to mention, Obi-Wan told him in that conversation that, Owen, you're his guardian, I'm just gonna bugger off. So it's like, and also like, oh, Luke deserves to be a kid, grow up a normal child. So it's like, Obi-Wan recognizes that, yeah, Owen, you had good points. So it's like, yeah, Owen allowing Obi-Wan to properly meet Luke, I think makes sense, given what we've seen.
Of course, then the whole waiting several seconds only for Obi-Wan to say hello there, yeah, that was extremely on the nose, and it wasn't necessary. And what I will say, though, is Qui-Gon appearing as a Force ghost, I genuinely didn't think that was going to happen, and I've got to be honest, that is the one thing that this entire show has done that I will give to it over the Kenobi book from Legends. actually being able to, well, not just hear Qui-Gon, but also see him. And I guess this confirms that Qui-Gon did complete his training as a Force Ghost, even though all sources post-Phantom Menace prior to this indicated otherwise.
Yeah, that.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that he could have completed the training during, him being dead. Because in TCW in episode 3, we see that he can manifest himself as a voice. And if he has enough consciousness to manifest as a voice, I think it's fair to say he can finish his training to manifest into a ghost. I mean, we don't know how the afterlife works. At least we don't know that much, so I can give this a pass. Not to mention, seeing him again, I think is worth it.
See, I mean, again, can I just say, with TCW, with the Mortis realm, it made sense, because that was literally a monolith of Force energy, really. But every other time we'd seen Qui-Gon, or heard Qui-Gon from beyond the grave, after TCW, it was only as a voice. So it was a bit of a surprise to me to see him appear as a incorporeal ghost, but yeah, I'll take that. As I say, it's the one thing this show does that I will give it credit for over the Kenobi book. And yeah, seeing Liam Neeson again, and getting that moment of interaction between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, even though it was brief, yes, I will give it a thumbs up. But overall, this show... Okay, so this episode, much to my surprise, didn't anger me anywhere near to the degree that I thought it would. And there were a lot of moments that, just taking them on their own, I like in this episode, but that's really as far as it goes, and that's the same thing I've said about most of the episodes in this show already. There are small moments that really, really work, but the core and the grand plot points fall flat on their face due to abysmal writing, and I kid you not, the only reason why I felt any degree of investment in this show, or at least the main reason for it, is the effort put forth from the actors. The fact that they managed to make the writing that this show was operating on anywhere near tolerable off the back of their performances is commendable. But of course, it's wasted talent. All of the actors in this show deserved so much better material to work with, and you two know this, Henson and General, but I don't think Django does, so I might as well just mention it again. This was the very first live-action Star Wars show of the current era that I took the time to watch, and it certainly wasn't smooth sailing for me. This show, bar the performances from the actors, has had far more low points than it's had high points for me. I certainly wouldn't feel that inclined to watch it again. Maybe I would if someone got me drunk enough. But just to wrap this up, and I said it before, but I'll say it again, guys, if you want a good Obi-Wan in Exile story, and heck, if you're thinking about giving the expanded universe a shot, read John Jackson Miller's Kenobi book. Don't touch this, if you haven't done so already.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to briefly mention, too, the last two episodes, I don't know if this is a factor, I don't know how big this is, but, I mean, the writing was already shit to begin with these previous episodes, but the last two episodes were co-written by Stanton, and if you don't know who he is, he's kind of like the senior guy for Pixar, and he's been involved with so many different Pixar films, like pretty much every single one since Toy Story, and this is kind of like this was his first Star Wars project, and he was just kind of thrown in to do these last two episodes as well. I guess he wanted to get involved, but I don't know. I don't think it made a difference either way. I think it would have still been bad, but he was involved too.
There's
Do you
that.
think the quality of the last two episodes is different than the rest of the show. So his presence may have done something, but regardless, I mean, not much you can do with a show like this being thrown into the last 2 episodes. But,
Yeah.
you know, for me, overall, I pretty much said what I needed to say. This is not the show we should have had. The actors are the best part. Has some moments that work, but overall, no. And by the end, I just really wanted it to end, and it's over. And so, yeah, I'm not going to drop the live action shows. I'm still invested enough. Plus, I mean, my friends are also keeping up with it, and, you know, it's always fun to talk Star Wars with them. But, you know, we'll see if this is a sign of things to come, or if it was just a one-off dud. We'll see.
I guess there is that. So as for me, well, I mean, thoughts on the last end of Part 6? I mean, cool seeing Qui-Gon and all this other stuff. I'm baffled why Obi-Wan would even go to Alderaan after Reva almost killed Luke, but whatever. At this point, this show's like a crapshoot of writing, so I shouldn't be surprised that it would end with that. So, yeah, and can't wait to see if we get Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, or Ian McDormand doing more stuff in the live action shows, or even voices. We'll have to see. So, yeah. As for my thoughts on the show as a whole, I wanted Obi-Wan in exile on Tatooine, his life in there. Like, I wanted that. If we're gonna get the inevitable Obi-Wan versus Vader, didn't like it, but at least do your best. No, I didn't get either of those two, so that stinks. And this is already 2 live-action Star Wars shows in a row that failed. 2. Like, Mandalorian's the only one that at this point has at least gotten most people agreeing that it's good. Like, these last 2 have not been good. Like, it makes me wonder, how would the other shows fare? Because, like, we got Andor, we got Ahsoka, we got The Acolyte, and a few others. How would those, like, we've already seen that it wasn't just Book of Boba Fett, a one at a time dud. Now we got 2 duds that happen almost simultaneously, or at least almost at the same time. So now what's up with the other live action shows? Like, guys, how do you think the shows will go? Now we got 2 episodes side by side, 2 shows side by side, just pretty much being a mediocre at best, bad at worst. Like, what do you guys think will go for the others?
I mean, as someone who also thinks that Mando is overrated and mediocre at best, we'll see. I mean, you know, I like Bad Batch. I have faith in that show. The Ahsoka show is pretty much just going to be season 5 of Rebels. So we'll see how that goes. I think that'll be safe at least, or at least be of the same quality as Mandalorian. You know, Acolytes, we'll see. Since that is an original, or that's going to be about an original character, it'll fare better, but again, we'll see. And just overall, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay. Luke?
I knew before starting to watch the show that you, Django, were not very optimistic about this, and that if this show was a disappointment, you would give up on the new canon stuff, which you were already teetering with anyway, just because you don't care about the new canon. And I sort of wondered, because bear in mind, this isn't a show about an original character or a background character from one of the films. This is about, or at least was advertised to be about, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, that's one of the characters who, when it comes to being the center of attention, you do not want to mess up under any circumstances. And the same goes for any other legacy characters that you have accompanying him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually wondered, prior to the first episode of this show releasing, that, I've sort of wondered it just to myself, that if the Kenobi show failed, and I think it's safe to say that it's been far more of a dud than it's been a smash, could this be what kills could this be what kills, or at least puts in stasis any future live-action Star Wars shows if it fails, given how high-profile and anticipated of a project this show was? And I'll put it this way. So you had Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi, two shows in a row that have definitely face-planted more than they've set the bar high. So if this show hasn't already completely killed the potential for any more of the live-action projects to be produced, I certainly think we might be on the way to doing that. Call this me being pessimistic if you want, but I actually think, Book of Boba Fett and now Obi-Wan Kenobi, two disappointing shows in a row. If this show hasn't already ruined the potential for more live-action Star Wars projects to be good, then I think the show that will follow this one, whichever one that happens to be, could be the one to do it if that's bad. Yes, I honestly think we're in a rule of three situation here, and that if they mess up one more time, that is, if this show hasn't already damaged the reputation of live-action Star Wars shows irreparably enough, that the live-action shows could suffer the same fate as the spin-off movies currently have if the third show in a row that we get is as bad as these two, or worse.
Indeed.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something else to bring up is as more and more of these live action, or I should say just movies and shows come out, the more it's like, again, I said it before, this canon is irredeemable at this point. Like, the only way any of it can work is through patchwork. And at that point, it's just not fun. The sequel era, that's just fucking destroyed. This is the story of Obi-Wan set during the Dark Times. This is the story of him and Vader meeting between 3 and 4, and now that's just ruined forever. You can't do that again. Or you can't do it for the first time ever again. It's like, and with the books and comics and games not being able to do much, this canon is just fucked beyond repair. And I've said it, and of course this was the case even just 5 years ago, but, the more and more we get, the more it's like, it's best to jump ship. I say, this canon is not going to be fixed, and even if they do change the way they do things, that's not going to change the first 8 years. It's fucked. Go to the EU. It's there, it's good, it has problems, but overall, it's amazing. Unlike this, where you got a few nuggets out of a sea of shit.
And even then, the nuggets you get aren't that great in their own right, at least when you compare them to the EU.
Well, when you're just looking at the movies and shows, yeah, but the books and comics and games can have their moments. Now, overall, yeah, EU is better, but you do have those few nuggets that are, genuinely good and not a complete waste of paper.
There is that indeed. So, in order to further illustrate Henson's point about Disney Star Wars' canon being completely irredeemable from a continuity standpoint, I'm going to show here how the Kenobi show has contradicted previous Disney Star Wars material. Now, before we go with this, I will show on the screen the Kenobi show writer Joby Harold claiming that this show would not break the already established Disney Star Wars canon. Just keep that in mind while we dive into this list. So, with that said, we begin with Marvel Star Wars 2015 issue 15, where chronologically it takes place 1 year before the Kenobi show happens, and it has Obi-Wan already living in his house from A New Hope, and it has Obi-Wan fully showcasing his full Jedi skills and Force powers, which in itself is a problem if we take the Kenobi show as canon, because we have to somehow assume Obi-Wan lost his Jedi skills and Force powers in just 1 year, and he for some reason started living in a cave despite already having his house from episode 4 by the time of this show. So how'd that go? The next continuity problem is from the Star Wars line webcomic from 2015, where it is confirmed to have been the very first time that Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi met face to face. This webcomic takes place in 7 BBY, 2 years after the Kenobi show, so the ending of the show's episode 6 has completely retconned this webcomic. Next, we go to Bail Organa's claim that no one was available to rescue Leia Organa for him, so he went to Obi-Wan for help. This is a contradiction because the Ahsoka book established that Bail Organa not only knows that Ahsoka Tano survived Order 66, but he not only helped Ahsoka with a mission, but he even recruited her to work for him as his manager on his intelligence network for years, all the way up until the events of Star Wars Rebels. Ahsoka was more than available to help Bail Organa rescue Leia, and yet he somehow seems to have completely forgotten about her. Well, the real reason is because the show's writers literally did not bother to fact-check that previous Disney Star Wars material already established that yes, Ahsoka Tano was already working with Bail Organa. So they completely skipped that in order to try to get their story across. So, yeah, this, and of course, not mention the bullshit ways in which both the Grand Inquisitor and Reva somehow survived being stabbed in the stomach. Let's also not forget those. So, yeah, that also is bullshit, especially because Qui-Gon Jinn died from that same injury, and yet he didn't survive it, but Reva and the Grand Inquisitor survived, so... yeah, like, these are just several examples that this show has pretty much contradicted previous Star Wars material. So, for those claiming that this show has made canon and Disney Star Wars stronger, no, it only fractured it. So, yeah, this doesn't help matters at all. So, yeah, now back to the podcast. Django, your thoughts on future Disney Star Wars shows?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys on this, and it's starting to become a trend where it's just like the movies where, you know, they've been going downhill and they kind of stopped for a while, and ever since the success of Mandalorian, where it's just like this new refreshing title, they're just kind of just using that and trying to milk the crap out of it, and it's just gone downhill where it's Mandalorian Season 2, where you kind of, it was fine. And now it's just becoming too much, where these TV shows, they don't have to have so much marketing behind it and so much, hype behind it because it's on Disney Plus. You can watch it whenever. And I think there's less cost associated with movies compared to TV shows. I mean, there's still a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's probably a safer thing at the same time. But you're starting to see a trend where, these shows are they're really going downhill fast, where you'll probably see it with Andor, and I agree with Luke on this, is like, Andor is really when, I think the only thing that's going to really bring these shows down is not so much the ratings, but if the viewership. So if people stop watching these TV shows for whatever reason, and I think Andor is going to be that one, where it's just like, we saw Rogue One, we really don't want a TV show associated with him. Like, let's get somebody, let's do something else different, refreshing, but you have to focus on this character from this spin-off movie. Like, is that really necessary? Like, it just seems too much. Where something like Acolyte, which is still like years down the line, and for me, I don't really care at this point at all, even though it's something about a Sith Acolyte, and it seems like a really cool idea, but at this point, I can't trust Disney to put out a good product with this, especially with the TV shows. And it's interesting at the same time, it's like they're also bringing back the movies, and they're taking a break from the movies to focus on the TV shows, because that was the big moneymaker with The Mandalorian. Rogue Squadron is coming up next year, and that's going to be the end of next year, and directed by Patty Jenkins. But
see with that one.
Yeah, but I think it's Taika Waititi is going to be involved with that. And
He has his own movie.
oh, he has his own. Okay.
And it's even up in the air if we're even going to get Rogue Squadron or if Patty Jenkins is going to still be involved with it.
Yeah, I know she's still the director at this point, but I haven't heard anything differently. But just with Rogue's, well, what Taika Waititi said, which was interesting, is like, he's somebody who really gets it with Marvel, and he's had success with that, and he could have success with Star Wars. Who knows? I mean, he's done good things with The Mandalorian season 1, but it just seems like I don't know if there could be that big person that comes in that could save it in the end. And it was interesting what he said. He was like, maybe we're going to bring in some new characters and tell some new stories. And it's like, that's what we wanted. I mean, that's what you did with The Mandalorian. Like, why is that so hard just to do that again? And then maybe you can, show these other characters down the road, but they shouldn't be like the forefront instead of like the main character. And that's where I'm seeing where it's just kind of like all these different, we're going to throw all these things at the wall and see what sticks with all these different TV shows. And that's what I'm seeing. And so far, there's only one thing that sticks, and that's The Mandalorian. I'm interested with the video games, but at this point, I am kind of done with the whole Disney Star Wars. And I guess we'll see with Mandalorian Season 3, but if that doesn't succeed, yeah, I'm officially done with the TV shows and movies.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay, so there is that. As for me, final thoughts. Well, this show was a dot. Book of Boba Fett was a dot. Mandalorian was the one I liked. And so, yeah, at this point, we'll have to see how it goes. I am not really expecting much. So, we'll see what other Disney Star Wars TV show we cover. I know Bad Batch Season 2 is going to be one we'll probably cover. So, because that's like the only one we're expecting that it would actually be good. Aside from, I guess, Mandalorian Season 3. So, we'll definitely cover Bad Batch. Andor... I think we'll just see how it goes. Neither one of us wants to cover it. We have no interest in it, so we'll just see how it goes. But no video from us on that one, so that's out. Acolyte, well, it's in the future, so we'll see how that goes. Ahsoka, well, we'll also have to wait and see how that goes. I think that's next year or in 2 years, Ahsoka. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll pretty much have to wait and see if Andor, I guess, in some way redeems the live action TV shows that are not Mandalorian. We'll have to wait and see for that. So, but at this point, this just stinks. So, yeah. So there is that. Next video after this one, we'll be taking a look at the Kenobi book from the Expanded Universe by John Jackson Miller, because we need something to just get our minds out of this thought of a TV show. So we're going to be doing that. And so, yeah, that's going to be our next video. After that, well, we'll see what other plans we got left. So, yeah.
Anybody wants to see me talk positively about Star Wars, well, there is always the Captain Henson YouTube channel. Because believe you me, people, it does sadden me that being on State of Star Wars brings me such sorrow when discussing Star Wars, but that is the reality. I'm glad this is fucking over, and maybe I take some time away. So long.
Okay, there is that. Anyway, see you guys in the next State of Star Wars video. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, may the force be with you.